Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being in here with us for a fun afternoon, whenever you could be outside getting sunburned and fishing and swimming. But anyway, the second call item on the agenda is discussion of possible award of a contract. Mr. Hewitt, you going to address this?
I can tee it up
All right.
for the board's discussion and then maybe parlay it into an explanation from Mr. Green. You got a memo in front of you that attempts to summarize the 3 items necessary to move forward with the rehabilitation project on Lift Station 4. Bids were received on the 17th at 2 o'clock. Parent low bidder is T.A. Loving Company, and Greens Engineering has determined that the bid is complete and responsive and recommends the town award the contract to T.A. Loving Company. That recommendation is identified as attachment 1 in your memo. The bid and the project's required direct purchase equipment that's been identified by the engineer is going to exceed the program budget by $283,000, which will drive the need for a budget amendment to that effect. Budget amendment at attachment 2 is prepared in accordance for your consideration. Additionally, the attainment of a temporary construction easement from the adjacent and surrounding property owner will be required to obtain the necessary access for construction and provide for laydown of building materials. That easement is identified as attachment 3 from the Holden Beach West Property Owners Association. The town attorney has prepared that easement and has it with her today. We'll need to execute that. The board will need to approve and execute it also in order to move forward with the project. So we've teed all these things up for your consideration. If you desire to stay on schedule, the necessary action to approve and award the contract would be in the recommended motion to approve the award of the Lift Station 4 upgrade in the amount of $1,205,000, approve the associated easement agreement for tax parcel 245 GA130, and approve the ordinance 1809 and ordinance amending ordinance 1708, the revenues and appropriations ordinance for fiscal year 2017-2018, amendment number 4 in the amount of $283,000. Mr. Green is here today to elaborate on the rehabilitation project, the bid process, anything you guys want to talk about.
Okay,
Open for discussion.
I went through the package, well done, and just have a couple of questions. And so the bid amount is $101,205,000, and I looked at page 3, and that's on page 3. Carmichael apparently was $188,420 more than the other contractor, Loving Company. But when I flipped over to page 16, it was $302,000 and $280 more on page 16. So I got a little confused at the total project cost of $1,695,700. And
If you're going to speak, would you
Well, yeah,
but
come to the
that makes sense.
The actual bid, if you'll go to page 16, the total construction includes a direct purchase of the Trifex pump skid and the SCADA equipment and a temporary pump skid. Those 3 numbers there have to be added to the bid price of $10 million. So,
Those three items are added to the price on page 3 then? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Was that in the original scope, the design?
Yes.
Well, how come the price didn't incorporate that?
Well, the,
I'm just trying to compare apples to apples.
okay, well, those three items on 16 that are below item number D,
Right,
they are all being direct purchased, and they would have been added to either one of the bids. So those three items should have been added to,
Oh, okay, I get it.
would be added to Logan's bid and also Carmichael's bid.
The town is directly purchasing those items, not through the
okay.
contractor, okay?
And the reason these items are direct purchase is for compatibility with the existing equipment and the delivery time on the manufacturer. We're talking about a 17-week delivery on the triplex pump skid, and we're trying to get ahead of the curve and not having that tied up with the contractor's shop drawings and approval and back and forth. We're ready to recommend that the town issue a purchase order for those three items as soon as the contracts for the work is awarded.
Okay, I was also surprised to see the increase here from the original engineer's estimate, David. It's, a little over $250,000, $282,700.40. That's a significant increase.
It is, but we are in a seller's market now as far as contracts concerned. I think this is high construction prices that we've seen in a lot of years. You have a very limited supply of contractors available that are capable of doing this work. The cost estimate is about a year old. There's been significant escalation of prices since that estimate was prepared. So that coupled with the time constraints of having to have this thing online by the 1st of February, and the complexity of the project, it just, all that together is on the cost of it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just having a problem with the over $250,000 here, in additional cost. In today's world, I understand that, contractors, are charging a little bit more, materials are a little bit more, but maybe we need to wait a little bit more, and so I'm not suggesting that at this point in time, but what I am suggesting is that maybe what we do is have a look at going back to see how we could address to try to reduce that number.
And the obvious thing is look at scope, right?
Right.
Or design. I have another concern looking at the numbers is the contingency was, the engineer's estimate was $157,400, and the actual bid is only $52,480.
Well, what we did, that original contingency was 15%.
Okay.
And typically, after you take bids on the project, you adjust that contingency down to somewhere around 5%. So we just arbitrarily took money out of the contingency, put it over there to make the numbers work out.
Yeah, it's $104,000, yeah. I always work with about 5% contingency.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But it was 15% in the original engineer's cost estimate.
But am I correct, that under engineer's estimate, that's your original estimate on page 16?
The engineer's estimate prepared here was the report.
Your original estimate?
That was McGill estimate in the report that McGill prepared.
And is that prior to the 283,000 that we need now? Is that
Yes.
283 not a change in his, it's just the additional equipment we needed?
Basically, the increase in cost is that equipment is close to $250, $260, $270,000. That extra equipment that wasn't in the original engineer's estimate. I mean, if you wanted to look at it that way, that additional equipment is pretty much what we need in order to move forward, regardless of how the construction bid came in or the programmatic budget
And
came
that would
in.
have been added to either one of the bids,
That's
if you're
correct.
looking at both.
Well, SCADA was definitely in the original engineering estimates, so I'm sure the others were,
And the pump skids were too.
right, so that's not exactly
Okay.
true.
We haven't, you're not seeing anything here that was not included in the original.
Okay.
Yeah.
cost estimate, except the temporary pump skid.
Yeah, so those other two lines should have been, there should have been numbers in the estimate, in those other two lines
So-
for the engineering
But
estimate.
back to the question of the contingency, you recommended a contingency of $157,000?
No,
No,
In the
Yes.
engineer's estimate, you had a contingency of $157,000.
John, this is McGill's estimate. This isn't Legal's estimate. None of these numbers here are his estimates. This is McGill's estimate.
Ah, okay.
well, yeah, I don't want to, you're standing by, you stood by this engineering estimate though, right, Mr. Green?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I have no
So-
problem with it.
But
Okay.
so-
I don't want to,
No, I have no problem with that. It's just, I'm saying that estimate's a year old,
okay, fair enough.
and
But it's-
inflation and
How is it the firm's bid for that is only $52,000? It's
No,
$100,000
The firm doesn't bid on
difference.
that, John. The firm doesn't bid on the contingency.
No, I know that, but, so their contingency
Yes, it
is only
does.
a third of what,
the contingency and the original cost estimate was 15% of the construction, estimated construction cost.
and it still would be if we did it
And
again.
that's what McGill had in his budget. But at this point in time, after you've taken bids and you know what your numbers are, then typically you will reduce that contingency down to 5%.
But that's-
To carry you through the rest of the project.
But the actual bid is not yours, right? This actual bid, isn't that the
No, that's from
construction
Lowe.
company's bid?
that's low.
Yeah, it's low.
So the bid is, the contractor, the low bid contractor was TA Lowe.
So he's the one that put the 52,000 in.
Right.
No, 52,000 is a reduction of the original 157,000 that was in the engineer's cost estimate.
It's the contingency from
It's just
the
an item that you may or may not need.
Loving, right.
This is actual.
We understand the question, right, obviously. When you're reducing by 2/3 the contingency, there's a question,
That's
right? I mean, that's,
And it's what it is, just a contingency. You know, hopefully, we don't need any of it. Hopefully, at the end of the day, that'll be $57,000 that you won't have to spend.
but that's a pretty big swing. I don't know the construction industry, but I wouldn't expect to swing 10% from a estimate for a contingency. But if you're saying 5% is the norm, In
Norm
this-
after bids are taken.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's
10
fine.
to 15% is normal for what the engineers usually estimate contingency when they're arranging financing prior to design, knowing the project might be 12 to 18 months down the road before you bid it.
Yep.
You've got to have, something to cover inflation, what have you. But once you get a firm construction figure ready to award the contract, you don't need that 15%.
So in my mind then, we're really not over, the estimate this bid is not over the estimate by 280, it's really over by 380, because that contingency covered some of those changes that you're expecting within that 12 months, right? That's the way I would look at it, so it's,
Yeah, and then in addition to that, you got the 55,000 for the site work, an increase from the engineering estimate. That's 55K right there. And then for the general construction, that's 172,000 over the estimate. Now,
can you give us some
these are-
details behind those?
These are big numbers. in my thinking.
Do you remember when McGill reported last year? I mean, McGill was very clear in his report that these are estimates based on a certain level of understanding, and clearly, once you got to more in-depth examination of the site of the details and closer to time, these numbers could change. Frankly, this to me is unfortunately what's to be expected, given, as is said, what is happening out there in terms of contracting cost and a limited number of bidders.
I know, but
But
that's why that $100,000 contingency is
I
in there.
understand that, but it is still, there was nothing precise and promised in the McGill report beyond this was a good faith estimate that with more in-depth investigation could go either way.
Understood?
This is a very complicated project. You've got to remember, we've got to maintain service. We can't turn that plant off and work on it indiscriminately. We've got to maintain sewer service on that end of the island. And that is reflected in this bid as well. And we initially, when we got into this thing, we fully understood, we fully understood the project, but as we really got into the detail of time, the complexities really surfaced. And I'm sure that the time limit that we have given the contractor to finish this thing by the 1st of February, delivery schedules on the equipment, has run these prices up.
I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I, like the other commissioners, had some difficulty linking it all together and actually knowing who did what. But this is the McGill, this engineering estimate is the McGill estimate originally, correct?
McGill
It was
did your
lacking,
report, yes, sir.
it was lacking the three items that if they
No,
had
no,
been
no,
in
no,
it.
no.
Well,
That's not true.
where are they?
The
I
only
don't-
item,
The
only item,
triplex, the SCADA, and the pump skid,
SCADA was in it. The
where,
pump,
where is it in it?
do you have his report?
It just got the estimate, the one page.
We got
that
these
you
two,
provided.
and those numbers aren't in that
No.
accounting?
If you had a copy.
And if they were, these bids would be equal, they would be equal to the original estimate.
If you had a copy of McGill's report, it would show the pumps, it would show the SCADA. It would not show the temporary pump skid. That's the only item. McGill's report, cost estimate for alternate 2 or 3, I can't remember which one, had about 15 items, line items of the way they broke theirs down. What I've done is consolidate those 15 items into the 4 bid items. If you look at
okay,
if you look at the bid, if you look at Terry Lovin's bid, there was an A, B, C, and D bid.
Okay.
It wasn't 15, we didn't bid the 15 items that McGill had in his cost estimate. We lumped some of those items together into 4. And we're direct purchasing the SCADA and the skid. That was one of the 15 items, or 2 of the 15 items that McGill had identified. Now, the $15,000, temporary pump, that may or may not be, needed, but that's insurance to keep that system operating down there while we're doing the changeover. It might run a week, it might run 2 hours, it might not run at all. But if we don't have it and we need it, then you're out of service.
Makes sense. That brings up, that's a wet well, that 4-in-1 has the wet well, correct?
Yeah.
And the last storm we had, there was some issues with that wet well on 4, correct?
We're sealing that wet well.
We are sealing the well.
We're putting a-
that
we're
was-
putting
The pipe be reworked also that ties into that pipe.
Okay, so that will,
We're
take care of that problem, okay.
It's
Perfect.
venting now to atmosphere, there's been some issues with odor coming out of that wet well.
Yep.
We're relocating that vent to the back of the site, and we're putting a submarine hatch on top of it, so it's gonna
Perfect.
be sealed.
Okay, great, answers the question.
You have subsurface pump associated with that also, correct?
Beg pardon?
There's a subsurface pump, electrical pump
In that wet well,
in the wet well.
yes, sir.
Can this temporary be used with that system after it's online?
No, that's a runner,
Oh, this 15,000 is a rental?
that's a runner.
Okay,
Now, what you are gonna have though, once this project is complete, you're gonna have 2 spare pumps that you can,
From-
the next stations that you
Yep.
do, you won't have that expense.
from the existing system right now?
That's right.
Right, okay,
You're gonna have a lot of surplus equipment.
yeah.
Do you have a view on what we might expect if this one goes as expected, what we might expect to the total cost picture as we go to the next one?
Well, no, I don't know when that might be. I mean, if you could tell me, will it be in your next, are you putting it in your next budget? Is it
Yes.
coming up in your next budget?
Yeah, we're anticipating the next budget cycle.
And actually, there's, not only the next one,
Well, we
there's
got two more.
2 more coming.
But two consecutive years.
The question is, how are you going to address those now that your flood levels have changed? Will you address them the same way we've done this one, or are you gonna drop them and do a different design?
Well, they're a good question, because those 2 are not, 4 and 1 are the same, and 2 and 3 are the same, so it's not the same as, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So they're a little bit different, they don't have the wet well. They don't pump across the,
That's true.
So, not being an engineer, sometimes I have some
I
funny
think the
questions.
cost will come down if it's done within, if the job is bid within the next 6 months.
Will we still have pumps under the underground?
Yeah.
They're submersible pumps.
supposed to, that's,
Right.
You've got pumps inside, you've got pumps in the wet well that's on the outside.
Not the wet well, I'm talking about with,
Inside,
around
yeah,
the
you've got,
tank.
You've got vacuum pumps, and you've got solids handling wastewater pumps. Both.
And it's only the vacuum pumps coming up,
That's correct,
the others are staying down.
that's correct. They are submersible pumps, they can operate underwater.
Okay.
Vacuum pumps have got to come out.
Gotcha.
yeah, I'd like to look, since this is the first one and a lot of, and unknowns, the intent is to do, number 3 and maybe number 2 right away. We could do 2 and 3 together, or since they are the same, would that be a cost-effective way to do it?
Possibly. You're gonna have a different situation in 2 and 3, in that you don't have the laydown area, to put your construction materials. So you're gonna have to make some arrangement to find some places to put it. 2, maybe you might can store it up down that street out there in off-season. But that's about the only choice you've got is a vacant lot across the street from it, you might can use that, you get, easement on it. 3 is not, 3 is maybe a little bit better.
And going, go ahead.
Question, doing 2 at the time, I can't say that it's gonna be any cheaper. Would you do it, would you bid them separately, or would you want to bid them together, or?
I would bid them together. I would think that'd be cost-effective to do that, but if you're saying it's not,
Well,
then,
I'm just, right now, it's kinda hard looking at crystal ball. I think you need to do some preliminary design before you make that call.
and there was discussion about scope. Is there anything that is, could be taken from the scope or the design from the system now to reduce the cost significantly?
I don't think so.
Not the SCADA?
The SCADA, now, the SCADA bid, SCADA price,
$73,000.
$72,000. Now, McGill's estimate called for $50,000 for the SCADA in his breakdown. The reason the SCADA system is as expensive as it is, there's three components to it. You've got a component, you got a system at the pump station. You're gonna have a receiving system at the Public Works Department. And you're gonna have a repeater on this tank right here. So you got three components. Now, two of those components will not be required again.
Right,
Their backbone.
right,
Their
right,
backbone.
right. So that's sunk cost.
Mr.
For-
Clinton?
How much are those two then?
Well, we anticipate in the other three stations are probably a SCADA price of around $30,000.
Okay, versus the 70, okay.
But I would like to point out that's classified as a critical facility now, or it's actually required.
To stick to the agenda.
Can't just do away with the gauge system.
You consider that a requirement now?
It's a critical facility.
Oh, okay, yeah,
All critical facilities have to have a SCADA system for monitoring.
okay.
So that's not something you want to start cutting.
Okay.
Try to throw aside the can.
I
It's
would- I
a
would-
good insurance policy too also.
Yeah, I'm familiar,
A lot of
actually.
you work actually, you go on a laptop, and you tell what kind of disaster you're having before you actually have one.
Chris, you've looked at this well?
Yeah,
Would you put a thumbs up to it?
I would, I've been looking at it for probably over 2 years now. I'm ready to see something happen.
But you're good with this?
And I am, I mean, I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I know people say, well, it's $250,000, but considering the economy and what work I see out there, I mean, it ought to be a pretty good indication of what's out there when you advertise for bids and you only receive 2. Now, if we weren't nothing out there to do, and we had 10 or 15 bids, you might see a lot of price bouncing around all over the place, but right now, I mean, there's so much work going on, I'm actually surprised it came in as good as it did, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think everyone's surprised it only came in as 2 bids, right? You're surprised that only 2 bids come in?
Well, we had about 10 plans, 10 sets of plans out.
Yeah.
Or responses originally. And, we thought we were gonna have at least 5 bidders.
And also, I think when they see how complex the job is gonna be, and the timeline that we're trying to work with, I think that deterred a lot of it, because when we first went down there to Pump Station 4 and looked at it, it looked like I had a military operation going on, a field day operation, that's how many people were down there looking at it, and I was shocked when we only had two people show up at the first opening and second.
You know, we had a free bid conference here, we had, I think, 10 or 11
Wow.
firms were represented. And they just looked at it. and
Scared
this is
a few of them
complex.
away, huh?
Beg pardon?
It scared a few of them away, huh?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may. Sure. The time frame of completion in February,
Yes,
Yeah, good question.
and squeezing these contractors in, limited time to work, what is the magical reason for February? Why not March or April?
you give us a little wiggle room for any delays that we might have.
Low flow time, Allen, got a lot lower flow then, and if we do have a hiccup there, it wouldn't be quite as bad to deal with as what it would be after March.
And I agree with all that, but how much extra time are you allowing? Are you allowing 3 months? Because February is followed by March, April, and May. So my question is, would 1 or 2 more months allowed for completion help us?
Help you on cost.
Yes, sir.
That's hard to say. I cringe when I think about the 1st of April, and the people start coming down here for the weekends, and the flows start increasing, and you got a system down there that you operate with a temporary pump. And it's kind of a shaky control system. I think February is, I'd hate to move it in a month, so.
So is it us that came with the February recommendation, or was it?
The commissioners had, the commissioners had indicated a desire to get it done as quickly as possible, and also to allow time to begin the follow-on engineering services for the next lift station. And there was an impetus that the board had expressed to get it done this year.
Okay, that leads to my follow-up question. If you finish in February and you indicate that you want to immediately go to the next one, does that not put you into the same scenario on the second job as you are on the first?
You won't have the engineering done by then. You would relearn any mistakes. The logic behind it was to build it any learning curve that had to be accomplished as a result of construction, that would be incorporated in the follow-on effort to do the engineering on the next lift station.
Okay, let me ask you simply.
I'd like for you to rephrase that.
I don't know what I
We would learn from our experience and not our mistakes.
Is that what I meant to say?
When are
What
you-
he said.
When are you expecting construction on the second job? If you finish this one in February and you're gonna scratch your head and see what you can improve on, when is the proposed job time for the second one? You
Well,
say,
let's face it, you got two more stations that are identical to this one. Maybe some horsepower differences, but the physical facility is identical. The engineering is not gonna be as complex as next one. I mean, yeah, I'm assuming, I don't know who's gonna do the work, but I would assume we would have a good chance because of what we've got here. The engineering is not gonna be as expensive. I mean, it's not gonna take as long to design it. So,
what I'm trying to get to, and I'm not doing a good job at it, what I'm hearing you say, and I respect what your thinking is, or at least what I think your thinking is, you don't want the possibility of heavy use ongoing at a time that you're
that's exactly,
working
that's exactly.
not 100%. Well, unless you're gonna do the same time frame for the next job, aren't you gonna be in a busy time on the second job?
You really can't start construction. When do you shut down here? First of November?
Pretty much, yes.
I mean,
And
middle of
crank,
October,
and
first of
crank
November.
up Easter.
So that's the date you're shooting. To start, no later than that. But I mean.
I'm still not, maybe I'm not understanding myself. If you finish in February, are you saying now you're not gonna start again until
I'm not
November?
saying that at
Till
all.
November, you gotta
And the
And the
engineer.
calendar dictates
Gotta
that to
engineer
us,
it.
basically, you're right, Mayor,
You,
yeah.
you see what I'm saying,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going?
It's the calendar, I mean, he could start, but the calendar, the summer.
So yeah, so that's why I'm not understanding why we have to finish February.
Well, he's saying, what he's saying, he wants we have to finish before the season, right? So he's adding a 2-month
I
contingency.
got that.
2 months contingency to that. That's why he's telling us February, but it might be
March or April.
end of March.
I'm gonna suggest this, and we haven't discussed this, but, you've got a contractor on site. You've got some, not major changes to plans, that you've got a set of plans that you can make some modifications to, and you can get prices from that contractor to do the next two in the next 4 to 5 months.
But we need to, I don't know if that's gonna comply with the contracting law. That's, yeah,
It's a legal issue.
we might be able to,
Attorney, let them make that call.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that would be, it's a unique situation down here with your season that you're working in.
But again, I have to compliment Alan's thinking here and his logic, and I appreciate him asking the question because, I don't want to be the only one looking at cost here myself, but I do look at money and it's critical. And, you can certainly appreciate that too as well. So Alan, thank you for your idea.
There's nothing to keep you from bidding. You can have the plans ready in 4 months
Yep.
to bid the next two
Right.
stations.
Am I correct that there's no new technology in this project? Everything's proven that we're gonna
Well,
do,
the technology in this project is the decibel rating of the pumps that we're gonna be using. They're gonna be less noisy than the ones that are down there now.
but other than that, shutting down the pumping station is simply to bring the electric panel up.
They work,
The electric panel has to come above ground,
all of them.
and the two pumps have to come above ground. The rest of the construction of the building shouldn't affect, when we're shutting down, but, and I don't know how long that takes to do that, but if we haven't done by February, or March or April, obviously we can't do it in the busy season. Can't take that risk. So we're motivated to get it done.
Yeah.
Do what we're
But I'm
doing
saying,
now.
build
I mean, we
structure.
build homes in the summer all the time here, right?
Homes
So
you
you
can.
can build the structure and prep and other
Exactly,
things.
because just the two
your
pumps and the
point,
electric
Alan.
panel have to come up to make the switch.
We're building the structure now, and the structure is being framed up such that it's gonna be completed when the pumps come in 17 weeks from now. And they'll be pushed into the structure. We're not gonna wait to build that structure until
Exactly.
the pumps get here. But if you
You
want
ready?
to streamline the next two stations, it can be streamlined.
Yeah, I think an effort should be made to do that, right? I mean,
Peter, I fully understand and I agree with you, but maybe we have to have that as a specific agenda topic for a separate meeting
fair enough, yep, I agree.
and discuss
Yep.
what we can do for the next two stations and
Absolutely.
focus on Ford today.
Yeah, we haven't, yep. I'm just trying to put my mind around $280,000 extra that when you do the second or third one, hopefully we already talked about engineering, we talked about, SCADA, there is some cost-effective.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's worthwhile, and Mr. Green, I certainly appreciate you being here today and, entering into the discussion here with us, and, I'm not a contractor at all, but, I certainly appreciate your comments back, but,
Yep.
again, and as Alan said, maybe we push the date out a little bit, but these are all good discussions, great discussions. There's nothing negative here, everything is positive.
I'm not a contractor either, so I'm curious, so we come to February, March, April, and what happens if it's, the contingency's used up and
The contract, and the job's not finished.
job not finished?
We've got liquidated damage, I think, $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
It's in
incentive
the
to
contract.
get it done.
So this is a not to exceed then, basically?
Yep,
That's firm contract.
There's a daily penalty.
Okay,
yeah, we're good.
But the bottom line is, if we've reached the busy season and it's not, the pumps aren't up, we're not gonna take them down until the busy season is over. We can't do that. We can't take them out.
that's
during
why
the
he's
busy
building 2 months into his,
Exactly, that's why you've got
into his
this-
schedule, right?
We're not gonna let long on it,
Exactly.
if we know that we can't deliver come
Right.
Memorial Day.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't want
Yeah,
to give Chris any gray hair.
I did contracts, but not for, and computers, we didn't have fixed price, basically. If you came to it, you just went back for more money. So that's not gonna happen here. They don't come back for more money. Okay,
Unless there's some
Are we ready for a vote?
yep, I am.
Mr. Mayor,
unforeseen change order.
you can call a vote, sir.
I'm not gonna tell you that.
Yeah, I know that game too. I know that game too, very well. I was a project manager.
Just call.
I call for a vote.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Motion, do we have a motion?
Motion to award the contract?
If I could request the board to refer to the motion as described in the manager's memo, I think that'll cover everything.
Which page is that?
It's page 1,
Oh,
because you can't award the contract without amending the budget and approving the easement also.
Which part of this would be the motion?
okay.
So, I'll do it. I move that we approve the award of the lift station number 4 upgrade contract to T.A. Loving Company in the amount of $1,205,000. Approve the associated easement agreement for tax parcel 245GA130, and approve ordinance 18-09, and ordinance amending ordinance 17-08, the revenues and appropriations ordinance for fiscal year 2017-2018, amendment number 4, in the amount of $283,000.
Second.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
None.
Mr. Green is asking to be recognized from the floor.
Are you also going to authorize the, purchase of the, pump skid and the skater?
It's
Is that in that budget,
it's in the
that
budget.
budget motion?
All right, everybody understand the motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's 4-1, Madam Clerk. All right, we ready to move to number 3?
I'm sorry, why is it 4-1, Mr. Mayor?
4-0.
4-0.
4-0.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said 1.
My mouth is overrunning my brain.
That's right.
4-0.
Can we, the clerk and I, be obliged a 2-minute timeout to complete some paperwork? Mr. Green wants to hit the ground running.
Oh, sure.
And we can,
Recess?
we can take 10 minutes, ask him.
5-minute recess. Mr. You got anything to say, or Madam Clerk, anything to say before we begin the public hearing?
Only that this is the required public hearing for the capacity fee study that was commissioned by the Board of Commissioners. It has been posted as required to the town's website for more than 45 days now. That required time period has expired. This is one of the steps, according to the legislation, that has to happen in order to move forward with being able to amend our, or implement capacity charges in accordance with the legislation. One point I'd like to note for the record is that it has been out for public consumption, posted on the website as required, and we have not received any comments back whatsoever on that. One of the requirements is that those comments would have to be provided to the consultant and potentially assimilated or accommodated by revisions to the report. The study itself was vetted by the audit committee, and they had no comment other than that it appeared to them to have been accomplished in accordance with the legislation.
And no questions from the staff as well, David? Okay.
It's-
Okay.
Are we ready to begin?
And McGill is here to present the report to the board.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board and town staff. McGill Associates, Michael Norton in our Salute office, and Dale Sheepers with our management services, who is going to give a much more elaborate drill down in some of the components of the study itself. We're very fortunate, obviously, and the town was, your manager was very familiar with House Bill 436, and it's rolling out, and the instructions and guidance rolling out in that last fall, and we were very fortunate that the provisions that we needed as far as the study, staff was very accommodating, got us information very quickly, enabling us sufficient time to digest and formulate into the analysis and the study itself. So as a result of House Bill 436, obviously we intended system development fees to gain that consistency in the management and assessment of those fees for the water and sewer services throughout the town, on the residential commercial side, and however that's applicable. And I'm going to let Dale go into a few more details of that. We'll be making reference to the study that you have in front of you for town of Holden Beach, and also in referencing the legislation somewhat in some of that dialogue. So, and as we're going through, of course, we'll entertain any questions regarding the summary itself, and certainly start off with some of that, and we'll proceed from there. Answer anything we can.
Good afternoon. My name's Dale Sheepers. I'm with McGill Associates. I am the management services analyst. That means I'm the guy that gets all the numbers and puts it on all the spreadsheets and kind of figures out what the bottom line is that needs to be considered as we move forward. As you all know, House Bill 436 was a result of a Supreme Court decision that said basically towns and cities do not have the authority to impose an impact fee. Okay, and therefore, in their wisdom, they said, well, since you don't have this, and we are now going to promulgate that authority to you, we will tell you how to do it. And that is what House Bill 436 is. It is very prescriptive. It is very, very precise. There really is not a lot of interpretation, if you will, to the approach and the methodology and the calculations that are required of House Bill 436. I will say that with one small caveat, and that would be that it does require that a qualified professional engineer or finance expert perform the calculation. And that would be based on industry standard approaches and methodologies. And I summarized those things in your report in the first few pages. And at the end of the day, if you'll turn to page 1, you'll see that the result of that is that using the calculation and applying it to a cost per gallon per day gives you the two numbers for water system and sewer system on page 1, 1448 and 4107 respectively. That translates into, you'll see in the second paragraph, the total of $20,577 for an equivalent residential unit, which is defined as a typical 3-bedroom dwelling unit. That is, again, a state prescribed standard by which we make this calculation, and that is followed by a requirement for a conversion or a table, if you will, that then would apply those same values to any other category of use besides the one that you're obligated to do as pretty much your baseline.
How does that compare to today's per gallon per day calculation?
In terms of,
Well, I see here 14, the water system is 14.48 for a 3-bedroom house. And so how does that compare?
okay, you can't really do like
I can't do that.
an apples and apples
I
comparison.
know, I was looking to do that, but I couldn't.
Well, you can't.
So it's just not me.
So, well, for everybody's benefit, the reason we can't do that is that the eligible dollar values for each of these systems has a lot to do with what your value is of your entire system, what your assets are worth.
Right.
Okay, when they were built, how long they've been depreciating, those sorts of things, and also the debt service that you have against those. Okay, the basic approach to this is that the new development hooking onto the system, okay, what we're after is pretty much an equitable buy-in cost of your existing capacity. There's two components. Buy-in capacity, buy-in is you're buying what you currently own, operate, and maintain. Okay? Every town is in a different stage of what you built, when you built it, how old is it, how much maintenance is required on that, and how much debt service, how much debt you still owe on that. Okay, so everybody's gonna be different, which would then produce a different number. Okay? The second component of the evaluation is the incremental cost, those things you're gonna build in the future, that you can also assign a value to in today's dollars, and then apply that to that capacity that those assets would be bringing to your system. Okay, so we figure out how much capacity, that you do have capacity today, which you do, how much that is worth, we put a value on that, then we add to that the additional capacity, the value of the additional capacity that you have yet to build. Okay, and that time frame for those future assets is anywhere up to 20 years. Okay, now, we all know that it's difficult to predict costs and those sorts of things in the future. And we've just experienced, like a 2-year span in terms of what happens to costs. So when we get out there a ways, it's a little difficult to put a firm number on that and say, yeah, 18 and a half years from now, we know we're gonna spend this money on this thing over here. And fortunately, we haven't extended ourselves too far in the engineering field to, really try to put good definite numbers that far out in the future. The capital plan we worked with here was about 5 years. So those numbers we feel pretty comfortable with and included those in the calculation to get these results.
So we get to readdress this every 5 years then, is that?
Well, we get to address these as often as we care to.
Oh, okay.
There's a minimum of 5 years. Every 5, or I guess I should say a maximum. There's a maximum amount of time of 5 years. So at least every 5 years, you have to take another look, as required by law. But if we have some significant changes in our capital plan, we didn't know today that we have these 4 other projects in that window that we want to include in our planning horizon. We make that determination, and there's a potential for varying this cost based on our new knowledge. We can certainly come back and do another study as required and incorporate those costs into that, and then,
So we get some do-overs, okay, good.
That gives you that flexible provision prior to the mandatory 5-year. That
Okay,
gives you
great.
that flexibility, that's something that wasn't realized or understood in the planning effort ahead of time. You get to capture that, as Dale said, at a point of revision, should it be significant.
yes.
But for the public's edification, these costs are only to expand capacity. Only new things expanding the capacity,
Yes.
not maintenance of existing capacity.
Right.
So that cost doesn't get added. The only thing we can think about is if we, 5 years from now, want to build a new water tower, we can put that in, try to guess what it's gonna cost and add that to it. Or we were gonna expand the amount of water we can process, or the sewage we can do, add another pump station, that would be allowed to be included.
Well, we've always talked about the upgrade of number 1 for capacity as well, something like
Exactly.
that.
That could be included if you're upgrading, but not just to maintain it.
Right.
Capacity-related assets.
Right.
The other question, the typical 3-bedroom, has anybody, is that tightened up a little bit? Because I could build a 50-room house with 3 bedrooms.
Okay, well, let me do 2 things. One, I think I need to clarify just a little bit more on the capacity issue. There is a provision in the standard, industry standard approach to making these calculations that says that you can include those projects, those renewal and replacement projects that preserve capacity. Okay, in order to do that though, you have to subtract out the value of the existing life that is left on those particular assets. Okay, so preserving capacity, you can put those in there, but you have to be very careful because you have to make sure that you know that you're preserving exactly the capacity of those assets that you're removing from that list in order to add the new list on that gives you that additional cost, that additional value.
It'd be like a complete rebuild, or,
Well, that sounds like the pump stations to me.
Well,
Remember, that's rehabilitation. Capacity is, for example, Lift Station 4, and we talked about this.
Okay.
Lift Station 4 is not increasing capacity.
It's
It-
preserving
it-
capacity.
No, it is not increasing the capacity. It's not a demand-driven. It's
improving safety.
proven safety. So by virtue, that wouldn't qualify. However, if, for instance, many lots on the east end get developed and drives a need to expand the capacity in the lift station up here in 1, those incremental costs that are related to capacity can be included in there, as if we were to undertake, for example, a rehab on that lift station at the same time, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to rehab that lift station number one up there without increasing the capacity at the same time. But just the incremental cost on the capacity. Am I saying the same thing you just did? But that's, yeah. But just rehab that keeps the capacity of that, the design capacity of that lift station, because what we're doing down at 4 does not increase capacity. It's not gonna pump any more maximum.
I understand,
Yeah,
but you use the
okay.
word preserve capacity, that kind of, okay, but
Yeah.
fine, just as long as you addressed it.
Would that not hold if I had to replace all of the pumps and the holding tank and the electrical panel for whatever reason, if I have to replace them?
Nope.
That's sustaining it, right?
That's-
Otherwise, I don't
that's-
have it.
That's maintenance.
Is that maintenance?
Well, and the reason is that in your current rates, the folks are paying in their rates the cost of maintaining. Okay, so the law says you can't double dip. I can't charge somebody coming in with a system development fee, something that's already built into my rates. Okay, and that's why we subtract out the outstanding debt service on any existing assets that we have that we're still paying for, because that would be double dipping as well. And I'm charging you that debt service, if you will, that value, and then again in the rates as we retire the debt.
This legislation came out, if I may, just, maybe this will help clear it up. This legislation came about from the fact that there are a couple of words missing in enabling legislation for cities on fees that they could collect. Specifically, the word future use was not allowed. So towns were collecting what was an impact fee for the future needs of a system. And a outfit called Quality Homes sued the town of Carthage and picked that statute apart for cities. Counties have the ability to do that, cities did not. And this House Bill 436 is a result of some fine lobbying by a number of outfits, you know, the house builders, the realtors, the lawyers, the municipal workers, the League of Municipalities, trying to find a solution where towns are not bankrupted as a result of the need to return impact fees that were charged. So they've done some things to help towns out there, but they have tied towns' boards' hands and managers' hands by saying you must follow this very precise formula. And not only must you follow it, but you must be told what formula to follow by these people who are going to follow industry standards. And as a result of their analysis, you may not ignore their analysis. You can reduce the fees, but you cannot go up. And if you do it, you better be able to tie it to industry standards. So this is new to every municipality in the state of North Carolina. All of them are coming online at the same time. There was just on a lawyer's listserv that I'm a part of, who has adopted the necessary ordinances pursuant to House Bill 436. And I think last week was the first time that somebody has actually completed the process. So I hope that helps clear up some of the reason why you're having to do this.
Okay, so where do we leave off?
3-bedroom.
Oh, 3-bedroom house. Okay, the law is clear, and it says that you must do this calculation based on a service unit definition. Service unit definition is the most common, the most typical connection in a given system, which is a typical 3-bedroom house. So the next thing we did is we took a look at, we've got the value, we figured out how much all this stuff's worth. Now we have to figure out, then we figured out capacity. Okay, so then we come down to the dollars per gallon per day value, okay, which then we want to recover that in a cost. Excuse me. So how do we do that? How do we apply that? So what we did is we looked at the typical 3-bedroom house, and we looked at 2 design standards that are in the state regulations for water and sewer. And we took those tables, one's called the Green Book table, the other one called the 2T table for water and sewer, and we looked up what a 3-bedroom house is based on those design tables. Okay, the reason we did that is that when you design design your system, you design anything that goes in your water or sewer system, you have to use those values to plan, design, construct, finance, and pay for everything that you do to expand your system. Okay, so we use those values, those gallon per day demands, to then apply to get the dollars per gallon per day to come up with that cost. Okay, so by the same standard we have to live by to plan, to design, to build, to finance, and to pay for, we're using that exact same standard for how much do you pay when you're the new customer, the new developer. Okay, so it's equitable, as they come on the system, from a business standpoint, they are buying in as equity partners, if you will, to your system.
And how do you, Holden Beach purchases their water and sewer from the county. How do you, they could change their rates at any time. How do we,
There's two
keep up with
components
that?
to their rate. One, you have a contract that you purchase capacity.
Okay.
Okay, that's just like purchasing a new treatment plant. Okay, we had a question about that in terms of is it eligible or not, because some had, as we talked a little bit earlier, there were all kinds of folks in the discussion, including attorneys. Some attorneys were saying, well, if you don't own it or will own it, then you can't claim it on your system development fee, and that's not true. We determined that those costs are eligible because you're buying capacity just as if you were buying a treatment plant. Okay, then your other charge from the county is for the operation and maintenance, for the cost of treating the sewage, which is a different component than the debt service schedule you have to pay for the capacity you purchased. Okay, so you essentially own that capacity just like you own a plant.
Okay.
Excuse me. All right.
So if that significantly changes, then we could go back just like anything, other significant change and redo it.
Exactly,
Okay.
right. If you buy another incremental amount of treatment capacity, then that would be eligible to calculate into the fee, and then you could do that as that occurred.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so moving forward, we then are required to have a conversion factor or a conversion table to then apply these costs to other categories of customers. And the way that we do that is we use those same tables that produce the demands by those various uses that we use to make the calculation, and we use that to apply to any other category of use that there is. Okay, so if you look in your appendix, you can see about 2/3 of the way back are those tables.
On page 52,
Was that Chris?
is that on page 52?
52? Okay.
The conversion table is,
Okay.
253, 54.
I think you've got it right there.
Yep. Yep, 52.
Okay, so if you look at those several pages that those tables appear on, you can see that there's a pretty comprehensive list of a lot of different types of uses that essentially give you a gallon per unit. And those gallons per unit can then be applied and a fee calculated based on that. Okay, I've also come up with a little spreadsheet calculator, so you can then enter those values in, and then it'll calculate for you. So you can easily make that calculation without having to come back to the tables and try to interpret all that stuff, and then figure it out on a case-by-case basis. Okay, I can make that available to your staff anytime. Okay, so next steps, we do have to adopt the study by resolution or ordinance, and then the fees have to be published in either your budget, your rates, or by separate ordinance.
And that's not what y'all are doing today. This
Right,
is just
right,
a public hearing, and what the staff will be attempting to do is to roll the results of, or the recommendations in the study into the budget, and to make sure that it's formatted right, and also administratively prepare the ordinances and the fee schedule for concurrent adoption at the budget meeting before the end of the 30 June.
And the only additional capacity, David, is, in here is the second water tower?
On the water side, that's correct.
Okay, and then I saw the lift station 4. Is that in here, or you just, okay?
Remember, the rehab cost on those don't go into
Right, right,
this
right.
calculation.
I'm sorry, 1, that's not it. Okay, thanks. Okay, great, thank you.
You didn't forecast upgrading capacity on one, right?
We don't know enough now.
It's not,
We have a question from the audience without objection. Yes, sir?
Dale, I'm confused on what that $20,577 represents. Is that a fee for someone that's building a new house to hook up to the system?
Yes.
Okay, that's what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. The second question is, he had asked for an apples to apples, so you can't do it. Is there any calculations in the report that figures out what an average house would bill would be higher or lower or revenue neutral?
In turn,
Well, we're establishing new fees.
correct.
So
Yeah.
compared to the old fee, is there any analysis in there whether that impacts it positive, negative,
I-
or revenue neutral? type?
I'll answer that one. The capacity fees will, in essence, we will not be able to charge sewer availability fees that we have in our current fee schedule schematic. So those go away along with impact fees. These capacity fees will actually have to be sequestered in their own capital reserve fund for expansion of facilities in the future. So they will not be going into an operational budget. The sewer availability, I call it sewer availability fees, it's sewer share fees that we collect now for new home construction. Most of those will be, have already been paid in advance. So those would not have been being used for operations, if you will.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the impact for our monthly water and sewer bill? Or has that been determined yet?
Zero.
Zero.
it's only for new building.
All right, so that's not gonna impact what's on that tax bill at the end of $495?
Nope.
This had nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do with it.
Only if you want to turn your 4-bedroom into a 7-bedroom or
No.
build a whole new facility.
Then is that gonna be another topic that's divorced from this?
What? Another topic.
No,
The $495 that's on the current yearly bill?
Not even gonna be, it's not even part of the discussion, because that charge will not change.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
but if this rate is 20,577, if I build a 6-bedroom, it's 40,000, 41,000 something. It's per bedroom above that, right?
It's per bedroom above 3.
Above 3.
There are a couple of minimums on 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. So you don't just take 3 bedroom to get 12 and multiply by 4. You have to use the calculator, because residential is minimum 400 gallons of water, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 bedroom. And sewer is 120 per bedroom, but 240 minimum for 1 and 2 bedroom. So given those minimums, it's not just a straight multiplication to get to whatever that increase is.
But above 3 it is, or not?
From
When I go beyond
4
3 bedrooms to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7,
When you get to 4, from there and above, it would be an equal incrementation as you go.
1/3 of that.
Did we provide
Yeah, I actually sent that to David this morning so they can be digesting that. That's one of the Excel spreadsheets that we talked about to allow staff to be able to view and detect like variations based on the system development fee, where that is established, but also 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5 and above, so you can kind of see those changes
Right.
as they would change incrementally, because it's not exact, and as Dale mentioned on those first few, there are minimum standards for those bedroom units. So it varies a little as you go up, say from a 3 to a 10, you can start seeing that delta get more precise or more projected, but that spreadsheet will help that.
Two-bedroom calculation is not one that I anticipate us using very often here at the beach.
I got the plans for one on my desk. right
I
now.
figured it.
the calculator also has a percent value in there, so you can take whatever percentage up to 100% of that calculation and apply that as well. So in other words, if you don't feel like the full amount is something that you're, that you would desire to do at this point, the calculator will let you look at any scenario you would like, 90%, 80%, 93.5%.
So this is the maximum we could charge.
Yeah, it'll take you all the way up to 100%, but anything below that, you can create any scenario you would like to evaluate this to make sure that.
Just be advised that today, that the fee schedule that's in place today is about $13,500 to hook up, for a house to hook up to a sewer, if they haven't already paid their fees in advance.
Who decides what percentage? Is that a board
The,
decision?
the board is going to decide, but the manager is gonna be making the budget recommendation that you do the maximum fees for water and sewer.
Good, good.
And I just wanted to point that out, because today, if somebody hasn't paid, they'll be, on the sewer side, the fee's about $13,500. Correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, for for sewer. Mhm, for
Yeah.
sewer.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
So that's, just for giggles, that's one of the reality checks that we had, kind of put in place, because this study is pretty close to that.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So are we voting to approve?
This is just a public hearing today.
No,
Information.
No, no, no,
So
no, no,
we'll be voting for next meeting?
at the regular.
Okay.
Okay, help me out here, Madam Clerk. We've disseminated information. Is there a public comment question period officially? Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to the subject that hasn't already spoken? All right, hearing none,
I move we adjourn.
well, let me declare the public hearing
Sorry.
over.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, sir.
Public hearing is now closed. Would
I
you like
move
to
we
make,
adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
Are we in order, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, it's 4-0. Thank you all for coming.